Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Winner's Circle. I'm Margot Black, and today we are going to discuss how to win with marketing to Gen Z. They're an exceptionally powerful generation. And with me on this topic is Anthony Cospito. He is the head of strategy at Moving Image and Content in New York City. Anthony, welcome to the Winner's Circle.
Hello there, Margot. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. If there's anybody who knows Gen Z inside and out, I would say that it's you. So tell me, Anthony, who is Gen Z exactly? And how are their purchasing habits different than the generation before them?
Sure. Well, let's start at the start, shall we? So who is Gen Z, right? From a demographic perspective, what's the range? It's about 10 to 25, depending on, what source you go to, but that's generally the range. So that's 1997 till about 2012, if we're thinking about it in terms of years. They're also the largest generation on Earth. Back in 2019, they surpassed millennials. So they make up about 32% of the population. So there's a lot of them out there. So
wow.
What's really interesting is, there's a lot of them. They're the next generation. And from a spending perspective, they have about $143 billion in spending power. And
that's a lot of spending. First of all, that's a lot of spending power. And then what did you just say that I cut you off in my big wow? Because that's a lot of spending power.
No, it's incredible, right? And to add on to that, they're still in college, a lot of them. And a lot of them haven't even gotten to college yet. So, I can imagine what's going to happen once they graduate. People are projecting their spending to be in the trillions. So it's a really important market.
Insane. And so, Anthony, does traditional marketing work with Gen Z, or what does and doesn't work with Gen Z when you're marketing to this generation?
Sure. It's a lot more than just the medium. It's not like where they're looking, where they're not looking. If you just step back and see what's effective for them, it's a different beast, right? I mean, what they do now is they don't watch television. We know that. They don't listen to radio. We know that.
Isn't that fascinating? So wait, you're literally marketing to a generation that does not watch TV and does not listen to radio.
Correct.
All right. So where are we going to find them?
Yeah, I mean, when you and I were coming up, it was all about radio, right? I mean, that's how you started your day. That's what you had on in the background. Yeah.
And there was like a couple of TV stations and a couple of radio stations that everybody listened to, period.
Yeah.
Maybe even one that everybody was listening to.
Exactly. With them, it's completely different. So, what they do is they will pay attention to ads that they like. So one of the interesting things about programmatic advertising, and these are the ads that you see on Instagram, across social, they're hyper targeted. If you're watching, a lot of videos like about lasagna, for example, personal anecdote, but if you love lasagna, you're going to see ads about lasagna. I see plenty of ads about lasagna. So I like those ads. So if you're targeting those ads effectively, they're going to work and they're going to look at them. So, advertising that's relevant, that's relatable, that doesn't get blocked. So advertising,
it doesn't get blocked. Listen to that, because that's a really big key. If it's relatable and it's targeted, it doesn't get blocked. I know that I've been on TikTok a lot, which, they may think I'm a little younger, but I'm getting tons of dress ads. And frankly, I like them.
For sure. Yeah, the TikTok algorithm is incredible. I mean, people have found out more about themselves on TikTok based on the algorithm than anything else. There are articles out there where people have said that they realized that they might be bi or gay because of the ads and the videos that were served to them on TikTok. And they sat back and they said, maybe I am.
I think I might have a dress addiction because of the ads that are served to me on TikTok. And I really love books and I like listening to the therapist. But let's talk about, because you really know this so well, how Gen Z is different from other generations. You have taught me that there are really three ways that they really differ: culture, commerce, and community. So in marketing, let's take it, each category. Talk to us about the culture, like the influence across generations and how this influence is amplified in digital, talking to this generation culturally.
Sure. What's really interesting in talking with brands and talking even with luxury brands, and when we bring up Gen Z and the importance of Gen Z, sometimes we get rolled eyes and say, oh, they're not our audience. We don't need to know about them. Let's move on. But then we say, hang on.
Ignore at your peril.
Exactly. Really. I mean, because at the end of the day, the cool kids still have some cachet, right? Everybody wants to be young. That's why in all the ads that you see, it's all about youth culture. It's that backwards aspiration, right? We all want to go back in time. We can't, right? So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the other thing is, if you're a parent, like if you're in Gen X, as I am, and you have a Gen Z kid, you want to be cool with them. They're actually showing you. My kid totally influences some of our purchasing habits. Like, I know that people may think like, oh, you have power of the purse. It's all you. No way, man. The kid is telling me what's cool in the household.
100%. And there have been
Right.
studies done where they showed about 93% of household products and purchases are influenced by Gen Z.
Wow. Wow. That means, I mean, in easy terms, that means your kids are influencing what you buy.
100%. 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's what's key. From a cultural perspective, they have that relevance. They're looking towards the future and people are listening to what they have to say. So, people want to have that cool sensibility about them. And they're passionate about these things, and they have digital now too. So if they're excited about something and they're on digital, they're amplifying that reach. You get this multiplier effect that is really powerful in what people buy.
I think I've also noticed not only are they digital, but they're really digitally capable, and they have extraordinary capabilities to organize, and they're super freaking smart. Like, I find, that generation, they know how to work their digital. It's not like they're like sort of figuring it out. If you look, I think you had mentioned to me even like right now the White House is, connecting with influencers so that they can have, share a voice as to what's going on with the war. And Gen Z was the one who like got all the tickets to the Trump campaign to not show up, and they organized on TikTok. So this generation understands the tools and they're really connected to them and they know how to work them culturally as a group.
100%. I mean, there was a White House briefing just about 2 weeks ago where they brought 30 influencers together specifically for that reason, to your point, because they understand, the White House, and I'm glad they're embracing this, they understand the impact that Gen Z has. So, how people understand the war is how they're going to talk about it and how Gen Z is going to amplify it. So it's really important to kind of strike at the base of that and really make sure that the everything is super clear for them to understand.
That is absolutely fascinating. Now let's talk about commerce. So, because besides the tremendous purchasing power, right? How is this generation driving the forms of commerce that they have, and also, which I know they do, shopping their values?
Sure, for sure. It's really interesting. When you look at Gen Z, they're always onto something new, right? They're the first ones to use TikTok. They're the first ones to use new technology. So if we look at something like social commerce, they're the ones driving it. It's millennials and it's Gen Z. And this is a big deal. This is projected to be about $1.2 trillion by 2024, and that's at a global scale.
Wow.
So yeah, that's where they're spending their time on the feed. So why not monetize that and start selling? And now the functionality has caught up with the desire and the demand, where it's really important for brands to start looking at social commerce, really understanding what it is.
Right. And that really means, like, as compared to the older generations, they might see it on social, then go research it on their computer. That means that generation, Gen Z, is buying it right from their phone, right from their Discord channel. They're doing it like where they see it.
100%. And one of the reasons why they want to do it is because when they buy something from the feed, it's from a small brand, right? It's not from, a PacSun or some other mall brand where they're going to look like everybody in their school. They want to look different. They're the most photographed generation ever. So when they find something unique, they want to make sure that they wear it so no one else looks like they do.
Isn't that fascinating? I've never heard anybody say this the way you just said. They are the most photographed generation ever. They are. I don't think of it that way. That brings us perfectly right into community. I mean, talk to us about the community they belong to and how that goes into the marketing to this group.
Sure. So one really important thing to think about and to understand with Gen Z, and this is true to a certain degree of millennials as well, Gen Z is the loneliest generation of all time. And it's paradoxical.
Well, they went through COVID. So I hope it's only because of COVID. I hope it changes because, I have a child in this generation, and one would hope that they're not forever labeled the loneliest, but they did. We all went through it together, but they really suffered the most.
Agreed. What's really interesting here is that these stats where they were named the loneliest generation ever was before COVID. So unfortunately, COVID has really accelerated that to a certain degree, so that they feel this more than ever. So, what this means for brands is, consumers want a brand that they could be a part of and belong to. They don't just want a brand that they can buy something from. They really want to feel connected to that brand. And that's why you see the success of brands like, Peloton, SoulCycle, Gymshark. they believe in community, and they have this community aesthetic to them, so that the loyalty is a lot stronger. People feel connected. People make friendships. There are Facebook groups that have been spawned out of Peloton, and lifelong friendships that have been spawned out of there because you're working out with someone and you're building that relationship. So it's amazing to see like how important community really is, especially, now.
Yeah, I also think for Gen Z, and something that is different from other generations, is they take their online relationships just as personally as they do their offline relationships. Like, I think as, a different generation, we might say, oh, well, I just met them online. But for Gen Z, it's still 100% a part of their life. Go on.
Yeah, no, it's completely logical, right? With the younger generations, it's okay now to say that you met your significant other on Tinder. Whereas, 10 years ago, it would have been taboo to say that. So now what's happening is now the new taboo, if you will, is, oh, I'm hanging out with my friends that I met on social. So now you have this other level of relationship that's starting to form that's not necessarily romantic, it's more platonic, but we're spending so much time, 8 hours a day we're spending on social and online. So it makes sense that our relationships are going to be born.
Right. I think just as a marketer, I think it's interesting because I think you really need to, if you want to reach that group, you have to understand this is their life. There's a blur. It's not like, they're there. So it's not like you're going to say, oh, well, it's just somebody you met on Discord, or it's just somebody you met on social. To them, they're all in. Talk to me about, or talk to everybody, basically, how are their purchasing habits, Anthony, different than the generation before? What's specific to Gen Z and their purchasing habits? How does somebody win with them? Since we're here to give tips, talk to us about how you win in their purchasing habits from what you know.
You have to be where they are, and be ready to sell, and have the inventory and have everything curated, have the experience ready for them. And I know that's a blanket statement, but basically with Gen Z, they're channel agnostic, right? They're ready to buy when they want to buy. So that means
that's really interesting. Channel agnostic, right? So basically they don't care where they meet you.
They don't care. If they want to buy that shirt, if they want to buy that pair of jeans, they want to buy it. So they'll go on their phone, they'll either go to the website, they'll go on social, they want to buy it right there and then. So being there, meeting them where they are and where they're spending their time. And that means even being on places like Twitch, which is a streaming service.
Oh yeah.
Being there and being there in the moment. And also speaking to what interests them. What's interesting about Gen Z is they want to customize things, so that they love that customization. And that's why we see a lot of brands offering that now.
That's a big deal. Customization for that generation is a colossal deal and a colossal, marketing opportunity, without a doubt, digitally and personally.
Oh, for sure. And this goes back to what we were saying before, is they want to look different, right? So if they're going to customize something, they know that the kid walking down the hall in high school isn't going to look exactly like them. So there's a value to that.
Right. You made your own Vans, you made your own this. Even if it's a brand, though, you were able to do it. Where does this generation spend their money, Anthony?
Yeah, a couple of different ways. The traditional ways is, things like jeans and clothing and concert tickets and food for their friends, things like that. But what's more interesting too is where they influence it. Like I was mentioning before, they influence the majority of household purchases. And that's where the family vacations together, what they buy, even furniture has a 78% influence rating. So even the furniture in your living room that you would think, my Gen Z doesn't care what we have, they care.
Yeah, they do. They care. And also, what parent doesn't want to be cool with their kid? Right now, it's definitely, because it's so digital, your kid, I know my kid's like showing me whatever, and able to make his own digital, bulletin board to show us very clearly with links, with price comparisons, with telling us and putting it in his cart. Like, it's a very different experience.
Oh, for sure. They got it all together.
It's not even like, Mom, can you take me to the mall? It's like, Mom, can I have this? It's at the mall. I did the research. It's in my cart. I know you make me say I have to try on shoes, so we can go here and then buy that.
For sure. And they'll even map the most efficient route to the mall with Google Maps. They got it covered.
Shocking. That's amazing. And then what does this generation, Gen Z, Anthony, want from a brand or a shopping experience? Like, you're head of strategy. What do you tell brands? This is how you win with Gen Z. What is it?
Sure. It's all about the experience. It has to be really easy to use. It has to be fast. If you're on mobile, you have to make sure that things load really fast. Inventory is super important. the majority of Gen Z, if they're shopping for something and they don't have what they're looking for in stock, they'll bail. They'll go to another competitor site. They'll click right away. So, it needs to be super efficient. But more importantly than anything else, they really need to feel a connection with the brand. They really feel like, oh, these clothes are like what I would like. It's presented in a way that's important to me. They're using models that, that look like me. There's a lot of diversity here. They need to feel that human connection above and beyond anything else, and there are ways that can happen online that bring that to life and ways that happen offline that bring that to life.
Yeah. And I think that this generation can smell BS and marketing propaganda like a million miles away. Like this generation, you can't get by any of that. I'm older, I'm wiser, BS, or, this was great in my day. They don't give a hoot. Although they do love vintage, which is really interesting. Just on
they love topic vintage. They love the what's good from the past, and they will call you out on it. If there's even a whiff of BS, they will call you out on it. And they've done it a lot. I mean, if we look back to 2020, right, and we look back at, the Aunt Jemima packaging, which was changed to a completely different name. And, Aunt Jemima, to their credit, they followed through. But that brand has been around for 130 years.
I know, but wasn't that fascinating? They listened because, man, the generation was just saying, hey, we like you, but it's time.
Right.
It's time. And you know what? It was time. It was time. And I thought they did. I thought they did a sensational job. Talk to us a little bit about, like, I know other brands have really evolved with this generation using, great drop culture, like, shopping drops and so on, and into the metaverse, they're all moving.
Sure.
But talk to us about a couple of brands, like what are some really good examples of who's done drop culture well? Tell us a little bit about what it is. Sure. And like, who's doing it well? Tell us some good examples that we wouldn't normally know.
Absolutely. So we'll step back for a minute and just like, what is drop culture, right? So it's really was born in the streetwear world. So it's all about scarcity. It's all about high quality. It's all about hype. It's all about creating this exciting buying moment, right? So that worked for brands like Kith, Supreme, Bape. The classic streetwear brands have done really, really well in that world. Now,
I totally saw it with Supreme and my kid, and I was like, what the heck is going on? There were lines. I'm in Los Angeles, lines down Fairfax. I still see them. See them. All right, go on.
It's the same here in New York as well. And the culture, the interesting thing is next time you see those lines, if you walk really slowly past the line and you hear what people are talking about, they're having a great time. Being online is part of the experience, right? It's that community.
Yes. That is what I learned watching all that stuff. Being online, getting there, talking to your friends. Are you going? Can you get me there? Can I go there? Are you going there? And then that's your day.
That's it. Yeah, it's all part of the experience. So, brands that have done that well are the classic brands, but there's also new platforms that are coming up online that haven't been there before. So a good example of that is something called Network. Network is a video shopping platform. It's kind of like QVC meets MTV.
I'm going to check it out. Network.
Yeah. It's great. They have about 2 million users. They're growing quite a bit. And you go on there and they create these little shows with live hosts, and they sell different products. And they do it in a way where they only have a certain amount of product available in that time. And if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't.
How cool. Like QVC for Gen Z.
It really is. It's exactly what it is.
Oh, I'm so going to check that out. Okay.
Yeah. And what's interesting about it is it works with traditional brands. It also works with new up and coming brands. Like I'm on the board of advisors of a company called Rome Pays Off. And we work with the Jean-Michel Basquiat estate. And we did a drop specifically for that artist, a capsule collection on Network. And this is to a Gen Z audience who might not necessarily be familiar with him. And it sold out in 20 minutes. It was amazing. The entire collection sold out, super successful. So it was a great way to introduce a classic contemporary artist to a whole new generation, which
that's
really
fascinating.
Before, yeah.
That's fascinating. So you had to educate the generation, right? And then hype the prompt. What did you do just in a tiny short sequence? If you can share with us, how did you introduce a whole different artist to a new generation?
Sure. Well, part of
that's no small feat. I just want to say to the audience, anybody watching, that's like not, I just made it look like, oh, tell us in 1 or 2 lines, but that's not a small feat. That's like major marketing planning, but please tell us how you did it.
Yeah, well, thankfully, the genius of Basquiat made it easier for us, right? So there's so much history to that artist. So, working with the right host at a company like Network really does help. We have an intro video that talks about the artist, and then we show the different pieces and all the storytelling around the art, the artist, and how all that comes together within that collection. So people watching, even if they're hearing it for the first time, like, wow, this is amazing. This is like a piece of history. So it's really providing that same level of education for artists like Jean-Michel Basquiat, and also like Ai Weiwei. He's a political Chinese activist artist who's just incredible. We did a drop with him there as well, and it was also really successful.
That's really fascinating. So Anthony, as head of strategy at MIC, if I came to you with a lipstick or a thing, a necklace, and I said, I undeniably want age, 12 through 25 for this. That's what I think it's perfect for. What would you tell me to do? Where would you tell me to be with it?
Sure. Well, first of all, I would say align with the creators and the influencers that appeal to that generation. Mm-hmm. Don't go out there and try and hawk it yourself, or try and just do traditional advertising. Not going to work. So hire the right people, creators and influencers, and get out of the way. Let them tell the story in their
Isn't that interesting? That's fascinating. Get out of the way. Don't do it yourself. Hire the influencers and the creators.
Yeah, and that's hard for a brand to do. Of course, brand safety is really important. Brand guidelines are super important. Within those wheelhouses, of course, you want to keep the guardrails up, but give the narrative, hand it over to Gen Z, and let them talk about it in their own terms. It's going to be so much more successful. So
wow,
let them drive.
That's fascinating. I mean, that's scary for a brand, right? Totally scary. So, I mean, if anybody who is watching this has worked with a big brand, there's lots of guardrails, lots of committees. So how do you do this? Like what companies, like how do they do it best when you're a big company, but you still, to work with Gen Z, need to enter a culture of innovation? How do you try?
Sure. If you look at companies like American Eagle did this really well, where they wanted to bring in the voice of Gen Z, but they said, how are we going to do this? So what they did was they created a teen council, this culture council. They brought these teens in to help guide things internally and also develop marketing communications. They even had the group produce a TV commercial specifically for the brand. So that way, they're creating these concepts and they're not doing it in a vacuum. They're mitigating risk by aligning with Gen Z from the inside, so the execution on the outside is really effective.
That is so genius. Yeah. A teen council for the brand. That's brilliant and genius. It's a way to get to that authentic voice, to make sure you're really, I find a lot of the times one of the worst mistakes people make, and this is the winner's circle, and that's a great strategy, Anthony, from somebody who's head of strategy. That's a really brilliant strategy. I find one of the worst things people do is they have very small groups of older people, and they're demanding that this is interesting. And, they won't test it enough, or they won't let it out there enough, or they won't let go enough. Just in a last question, what kind of a role do celebrities and influencers and political people play in these figures of marketing to Gen Z? Like, who has the most amount of sway and power if you're trying to reach this generation?
Sure. Well, you would think the biggest celebrity in the room would have the most power, right? Because they have the most reach. Everybody knows them. Of course, that's a slam dunk. Not so much. We were talking before about how smart Gen Z is. They see through that. They know that celebrities live on their ivory castles. They have their own worlds. And at the end of the day, they're all trying essentially to sell something, right? And they don't really relate to them at all. So what's more effective are influencers. So people that people follow on social. They've developed this proto-social relationship with them, so consumers feel that they know them, they could relate to them. So influencers and creators are the ones that are moving the needle. And then a little bit further, not even influencers, micro and nano influencers. So the ones with even the smaller followings are more like them, so they have more influence. So from a human perspective, psychological perspective, it makes sense, but it's a little counterintuitive for us off the bat.
I think it's really fascinating. I mean, it's a generation who just basically said, we're not taking your BS. Right. We're totally capable. We know these tools better than you do. And if you want to come to us, you got to come into our own terms. We're basically not, it's a very powerful generation as far as buying and selling and really producing. It's a generation that has all the access you could ever want to the whole world. I think it's like one of the first generations that is saying, no, we'll keep the power, thanks.
For sure. And you know what? Most of them don't remember a world before Facebook.
Right. They're a digitally native world. They don't know a world without being able to connect digitally to your phone.
Right. And that social aspect that was never there is just a click away for them. So it's evolving quite a bit. So influencers are a part of the mix, and technology and influencers are mixing in a certain way where there's now the rise of the virtual influencer. So these are people that are streaming, let's say, on Twitch. And there's one called Code Miko. It's a woman called Code Miko, and she's also known as the technician, because sometimes she'll show herself in a full body motion capture suit, which costs about $30,000. And then you see her in the actual filtered version of that, and everything is surreal. She looks completely different. It looks like an anime character, and she builds this pseudonymous relationship with all of her followers in such a way where some people, if they're following her, don't even know what she really looks like.
That's really fascinating.
She's one of the rare ones that goes back and forth, but it's this new rise of the virtual influencer, but it's driving real results, in the real world.
Yeah, no, it's really fascinating. Anthony, I'm going to make a horrible attempt, a valid attempt, let's say that, to wrap up everything we just learned from you, because these were incredible tips. One, for Gen Z, the most powerful purchasing generation we have right now, meet them where they are. They're not interested in your BS. They want to meet you where they are. Don't try to just sell to them. Get out of the way. Let influencers do it. Let people that are in their audience do it, and really make sure there's an experience there for them. And also make sure that you are clear in your brand values so that they can align with your brand values, because they want community. They want some consistency in those values for sure. And they want to participate, but they want to participate on their level. And whenever possible, make sure that they can customize it to themselves. They want individuality, and they want it to show through even with your brand.
You got it. You nailed it.
Yay. Anthony Cospito from Head of Strategy at Moving Image and Content. We learned so much from you today. Those are fantastic winning strategies. Thank you for joining us here. You have been just so informative, and may everybody go forth with Gen Z and Anthony's tips and prosper. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.